On behalf of Chabad Glen Eira, we welcome everybody here tonight and today in Israel. I'm very much looking forward to Dave's tour. Because here specifically in Melbourne, we're in lockdown. We can't really go out and entertain ourselves, so it's going to be very, very heartwarming and refreshing to see the beautiful sights of our precious homeland, Eretz Israel, and specifically now in the 3 weeks where we mourn the destruction of Jerusalem and the Temple. It's a very appropriate time to think more and see more of Israel and arouse our love and our devotion to Israel. I'd like to thank our sponsors that made this possible. Tom Issy Jacob, thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Shimshon Marom, who's managing all the technical side of all this. And I met over Zoom and on the phone Dave just a few days, and he is the most wonderful guy. And I've heard from a lot of other people, he is a tremendous tour guide and a real wonderful guy. And I'm personally looking forward for the next 3 live tours starting with tonight. So go ahead, Dave, it's all yours.
Australia,
Yes.
you can hear me. Wonderful. So it is truly an honor for me to be here with Chabad Glen Eira. And what we're going to be doing over the next 3 weeks is it's a first time, so you are world first. And we are doing what I would call the big 3. People often ask me, Dave, you've only got a couple of days in Israel, and often people are in and out in just a couple of days, and they say to me, what should I do? And I always say the big 3. So what we'll be doing over the next few weeks, we are today in Caesarea, we'll be going to Masada, and then finishing up on Tisha B'Av in Yerushalayim. So it truly is a special 3-session program that we'll be doing. And as we talk and guide, we're going to understand how all of these 3 are connected. So it really should be great. A little bit about me, born and bred in Melbourne, grew up in Caulfield, went through Mount Scopus, had a gap year in 1981 in Israel, and then studied physiotherapy, made Aliyah in 1987, lived briefly on a kibbutz, and then I spent over 20 years working in the IDF as a physiotherapist, looking after wounded soldiers, which was a very rewarding career, but also very exhausting. And then 10 years ago, I left the army and trained as a tour guide. So for the last 10 years, after a 2-year intense course, I've been guiding and showing people around Israel. But enough about me, and let's start talking about the events of Caesarea. And before we talk about Caesarea, we've really got to understand what period we're at. So every tour guide has one of these. It's a timeline. So it's going to switch the camera around. I'm switching the camera around. Half a sec. Okay, so let's zoom in on my timeline. And this goes basically from the time of Abraham, then the Judges, and then the arrival into the Holy Land. And then in 332, we have BCE, before the Common Era, we have the Greeks. We briefly have the rebellion by the Maccabi family, led by the Maccabim. However, that didn't last long, and then the Romans come in. So the whole tour today is basically got to do with the Romans. What have the Romans done for us? So the Romans come in 63 BCE. 300 years later, the Romans adopt Christianity, and that's what's known as the Byzantine period. And then we have the introduction of Islam. The Crusaders are also here in Caesarea. We're going to be seeing ruins of from the Crusaders. And finally, in 1287, the Crusaders were removed by a warring Islamic group called Mamluks, and the city was destroyed and lost and forgotten. And it was lost until we come up to the Ottoman period. And not in 1516, but in 1882. Let's have that first slide, please. First slide, please. Shimshon. So in 1882, a very important man, Baron Rothschild, a French Jew who has a strong resemblance to my father, Jack Cherny, in my opinion. I hope he's not too embarrassed, but I do see the resemblance. But Baron Rothschild, he comes here and purchases land. And this is something we always have to remember. Often you'll hear the Jews came and conquered the land. But Baron Rothschild and other early Zionists came with a checkbook and purchased land here. Okay, you can take the slide down, and I'm sorry, Dad, if it caused you any discomfort, but it's a nice photo of you. Okay, so the Baron Rothschild buys the land, and then we finally have the British mandate, and then finally the state of Israel is created. So that's the timeline. We're going to be focusing on the Roman period. So the Romans turn up here in 67 BCE. Now, they come over here and they make this their hub. Now, the Romans don't understand the Jews. The Jews are based in Jerusalem at their very small, modest temple, which was renovated by Nehemiah. And a half-Jewish man called Herod, he goes to the Romans. Now, Herod had a Roman education, but he had some Jewish blood. And he goes to the Romans and he said to the Romans, look, you don't understand the Jews. I am partially Jewish. Let me be your man in the land. So Herod is given the title King of the Jews. Now, Herod has a dilemma. He has loyalty to the Jews, but he has loyalty to Romans. So he has to win the Romans over. So what does he do for the Romans? He builds this amazing port city. What does he do for the Jews to keep them happy? He renovates the temple. So the magnificent temple that we'll be visiting the remains of on Erev Tisha B'Av, where the Kotel is, that was renovated by Herod. So Herod is doing nice things for the Jews. He's doing nice things for the Romans. I don't know if any of you in the audience have been invited to two weddings on the same night. It's always a dilemma. Which one do you go to? Well, Herod, he thought he could do both. So he tried to keep the Jews happy and the Romans happy. But he made an escape plan. And that's where we're going Sunday week. And I'm talking about Masada. So Herod realized if either the Romans or the Jews got fed up with him, he would need somewhere to run to. And that's why he creates the fortress in Masada. And we'll tell that story when we're there. So not only is this the big three, it's the big Herod three. So let's start learning about the city. And in front of me is a lovely model showing the highlights of the city. So I'm going to get down, almost flying over. So it was in its day a very large city of approximately 80,000 people. I'm pointing out to you where the walls are. And we're going to be exploring today, seeing the theatre, Herod's palace, the racetrack, the temples. However, the most important sight, I'm afraid, I won't be able to show you. What Herod has created here is the first modern harbour. Now, hopefully you can see it outlined here, there, and coming around here. Why can't I show it to you today? Because it's under the seas, under the waters. Over the centuries, we've had tsunamis, and finally, the walls of this harbour got destroyed. So people will say to me, Dave, you're just telling me a story about a harbour. But in fact, we can actually go down. There are two ways to see it. One is we could hire a helicopter or a drone, and as you fly over, you can actually see the remains of it. Or you could put on your scuba gear, and that's something we can do when you come and visit Israel. You can actually see sections of that underwater harbour. So this is a major city. What do you need for any major city? You need a water supply. Here in Caesarea, we have very little water. So what Herod does, he creates a series of aqueducts, and that brings water from about 20 kilometers away into the city. So these are the things we're going to be seeing today. And at the end, there might be a bonus of people who want to stay on. When we finish, have a cup of tea. I've got to drive over there. Then we may be able to link up again just to show you the aqueduct if you've got the patience for that. So I'm going to collect my timeline and we're going to start our adventures. Can anybody still hear me out there? Anybody there?
We're all here. It's brilliant.
Oh, good. So I need every so often a and a ah just to let me know that you're there.
Ah, magnificent. Beautiful.
Okay, thanks. That's very encouraging. So we're going to walk over, and what we have on display in front of us is a wonderful collection of statues. Okay, so I want to show you the statues. As we get closer, there is a common theme. You can all quietly guess, or if you want, you can type in the guess if you want to type it in. I go from statue to statue. These amazing Roman statues made out of marble. I'll let you appreciate them, not hurry. Another beautiful statue here. Okay, I think you're getting the idea. No heads. Okay, I'll discuss that shortly. This is a favorite of mine. Having been a physiotherapist and studied anatomy, I'm overwhelmed by its accuracy and its details. It's even got a problem with his big toe. But just to give you some idea, I'm going to put my foot up next to it. So this is huge. So all that was found of this was the foot. So I just can't imagine how big the rest of the statue was. So as we see these spectacular Roman statues, they're all missing a head. This guy's missing something else, but they're all missing heads. And why no heads? Because after we have the Romans here and then the Christians, Islam comes along and they destroy the statues. And that's a little bit similar to what was happening during the war with ISIS. They were also vandalizing Roman statues all out throughout the world. So just appreciate the detail of the toga. You can almost feel the material. So spectacular detail. And all of this has been carved out of marble. Where's the marble coming from, guys? Okay, there are tons and tons of marble all over Caesarea, and we're going to be seeing it. And the answer is it's all been imported. There is no marble mines in Israel. So all the marble has come from all over the world. So that harbour was very, very busy importing marble. So you're importing at one end, and at the other end, we are exporting spices. We have the spice trails. We are now approaching the Roman theatre, often known as an amphitheatre, but it's a bit of a misnomer. A theatre is a semicircle auditorium. An amphitheatre is totally round. So the Colosseum in Rome, which we'll talk about shortly, is an amphitheatre. This is the theatre. So let's make our way. And as I walk through these arches, I can see the sea behind me. In Roman architecture, these arches, the entrance to a theatre, is called a vomitarium. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because if the show's bad, the crowds spew out. Literally, that's where the connection of those two words are. You can actually still see on the walls some of the original plastering. So this is the plaster going back from that period. So let's step on through and enjoy one of the greatest sights in Israel with the sea behind us, the magnificent Roman amphitheatre of Caesarea. So this has stood the test of time of 2,000 years. It was actually renovated in the 1970s. But this seat here, I'll get my printer out, this one here is one of the original seats. But the entire structure is original. It can today seat about 2,000 people. And in the day, in fact, There was even a third deck above this. So it would have held a lot more. And in the day, they would have been showing dramas, doing musicals. They're not doing the gladiators elsewhere, but this was purely for entertainment. And this is only about one of, I think, 7, if I count correctly. There are 7 theatres, but this is the best and the best preserved one. And today it is still used. So I want slide number 2 to come up, please. So that's what a Roman theatre looked like in the day. And this one would have been very similar to Caesarea. The Caesarea one, in fact, also would have had 3 levels. And then where the stage is, I want you to notice that there is a backstage, a built up. And also that would have been here in Caesarea. That has fallen down. But that would have been the back set. And every Roman theatre had a back set, and actors were moving in and around from that. So let's just go back to me. Okay, so I've decided I'm going to go up on the stage, which has just recently been renovated. And then I'll let you all enjoy the scenery. Now, the acoustics are quite spectacular as well. But this is the great stage of Caesarea. This is my one chance to sing the one song that I know. You can all join me. We are Geelong, the greatest team of all. We are Geelong. I hope I didn't offend anybody by that. So this is the stage of Caesarea. The stage in the summer months is used throughout the year. This year with the corona, there are no shows, but from about May through to September, there are nightly shows. And there's one legendary Israeli pop star who performs here. We'll have the slide up now. Slide, please, coming. Okay, I'm talking about the legendary singer, Shlomo Artzi. So you can see him there with the crowd. And during the summer months, he would perform here almost every week to a full house. He is in his early 70s, but he has a popular audience from teenagers to 80-year-olds. So Shlomo Artzi, a famous Israeli pop singer. And if you're ever in Israel, you could get to see him. So let's switch back to me, and we're going to continue on our adventure. How are we doing there, Melbourne?
Great.
Great. So today is the beginning of a heat wave. So I would say it's a bearable, maybe about 30 degrees. I'm out here on my own, so my son organised me a shluka. I've got a backpack with water. So I'm a one-man show. I'm the cameraman, the presenter, and the tech guy as well. So we're going to make our way around and see a little bit more of the Caesarea. So I'm just going to switch the camera away from me again. Okay, so what we have here, a lot of marble stone, and that would have all come crashing down from that backstage that I talked to you about. Okay, so all of these pieces of stone are from this backstage at the theatre, and all got great details of carving within it. You can just appreciate the amount of work the stonemasons put in carving it all into the stone, which was imported, some from the north as far as northern Turkey, and some of it was coming from even Africa. Just slowly going across, hopefully you can see in the distance the smoke or the steam coming out of the chimney over there. That is Israel's largest power station. Israel, we don't use nuclear fuels. We are now doing a lot of solar, wind, but that station over there is burning gas. So we've moved over to gas, and offshore, and we may be able to see it, is the new Israeli offshore gas field. So here's just a nice map of the zone. So we have Caesarea over here, and we're basically, for the Romans who are based way over there, we're basically the last stop before they could get to Alexandria, another important city for them. I'm getting messages I've got to close. Okay, and what we have here are all the different types of stone which they've found. The different forms of marble, beautiful pink marbles, lovely red granite, and a lovely grey granite. So there's so much stone here that the kibbutz next door, called Sdot Yam, they started utilizing the stone and making kitchen tops. So some of you in Melbourne may even have them. Sing out if you do. Caesarea stone, Caesar stone. That's all come from Israel. Today they're not using stone from here. They're now making synthetic or polishing regular stones. But those lovely kitchen tops are actually all coming from Israel. Can anybody spot Simba the lion? Let's get close. So this is just a lovely statue on display as we come across the royal lion's head. So this is only the introduction, guys. So Caesarea has so much more. I just go through this gateway and it all opens up in front of us. So that's where we're going to be continuing today. Shalom, we have some Israelis. Say hello to Australia. This is live to Chabad, Melbourne.
Hi.
Anybody know someone in Melbourne in Australia? Ah, they're doing the benching, the Birkat Hamazon. Ah, I'm disturbing them doing their benching. So you might hear Birkat Hamazon in the background. So what I want to show you now is a diagram. We've got a bit of sun coming through of Herod's temple, Herod's palace, sorry. So Herod has over here on the promontory an amazing palace. Not much of it still stands today. It's over there on the rocks, but that one little spot there is a little bit of the walls of Herod's palace. We're going to go over to that corner and there's actually a surprise. We'll actually learn more about his palace while we're over there. So enjoy the blowing of the wind in the background and the spectacular scenery as we go over and explore Herod's palace. So this city was a Roman city, but it also had a very significant Jewish connection. So we have Jews living here under the Roman rule. It was, in fact, we're talking about Tisha B'Av, the destruction of the temple. The destruction of the temple happened in Tisha B'Av in the year 70. Now, that all started actually with a Jewish revolt in the year 66. Where did the Jewish revolt start? It started here in Caesarea. It was the Jews here who started this revolt, which ends up with the destruction of the temple. That's when we first know there was a significant Jewish population here. The Jews weren't happy with the taxes and the rules and the restrictions by the Romans, and that started the Great Revolt in 66. And again, we're going to learn about Caesarea about 200 years later, during the Bar Kokhba revolt. During the time of Bar Kokhba, in 132 AD, there was a great Jewish rabbi, Rabbi Akiva. And it was here in Caesarea, and it might be exactly where I'm standing here. He could have been imprisoned because we believe that there would have been government offices right next door to Herod's palace. So here in Caesarea, he was imprisoned and then finally executed. So it is also very much a part of our history as well. So we are now down overlooking the palace. Down below, you can see some beautiful mosaics. Okay, you can see the mosaics down there. In the distance, over there, there's a little bit of the rock still there. The most exciting thing directly in front of you. I want everybody to look in the center of the screen. What are you beginning to see? I'm beginning to see a carved out rectangle. That is King Herod's, listen to this, King Herod's freshwater swimming pool of his palace. He didn't like the salt in his eyes. He wanted fresh water coming in from the aqueducts. So the palace would have looked something like this, with a central swimming pool and the palace around. So that deserves a big wow. Can anybody still hear me out there?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Gorgeous.
So we're going to leave Herod's palace and the power station in the distance, and we're going to continue on our journey. Whenever I say that, you're going on a journey with Cherny. A journey with Cherny. Now, normally there would be hundreds of people here, but again, with Corona, no tourists. And as we saw the family doing Birkat Hamazon, there are a few Israelis, but the base is very, very spookingly quiet. So we're going to make our way down towards the racetrack, and we'll be there very shortly. So maybe I'll switch so you can see a bit of me. Okay, so we're walking over now to our day at the races. So in antiquities, in the Roman world, they're a bit like the politicians of today. I've been out of Australia for 30 odd years, but I still love the footy, as you heard me singing the song. And I've just heard, in spite of all the problems with Corona, the footy's going to go on. So this is an ancient concept to distract the people, for all the terrible things happening in the world, poverty, Corona. They still continue with sports. And that leads me towards the racetrack here in Caesarea, which was a very central part of life here in the times. If you ever go back and look at old videos or old movies, people used to always talk about Ben-Hur. Nothing bigger than Ben-Hur. Od Madrich. There's another lone Madrichim out here. Few guides just wandering around. So Ben-Hur is a famous movie, and it's based on the Jewish chariot races which were happening here. Now I'm just going to have a little sit down for a moment. I'm having a little sit down. I'm going to have a drink. And gentlemen, don't do this at home. Anyone see where I'm sitting? I'll turn the camera around. Whoa, I've got a bit of sun cream in my eye. You'll excuse me. One sec, trying to switch the camera. One minute, I can't see the screen. You'll have to bear with me. Okay, so what I was showing you, where I was sitting, you can see these benches laid. So what I was sitting on was actually 2,000-year-old bathrooms. So you would sit up there, sit up on either side with your cheeks on either side, do your business. And then down here, we've got a separate guttering, a separate gutter down here where there would have been fresh water, and there you'd be able to wash your hands. And back in the Roman days, it was pretty public. You just lift up your toga, do your business, and away you go. And that's at the entrance of the spectacular Hippodrome. So the Hippodrome is basically the Flemington of the olden days. Here they were racing chariots around and around a track which is about, as far as you can see, about 400 meters that way, and they would charge around a center spot here. And this stadium could hold about 10,000 people in its day. All the seats that you're seeing are original. As I scan around the seats right around the venue. However, on the western side where the sea is, there is no seats. And that goes back to what we discussed before, the tsunamis, which not only destroyed the harbour, also destroyed here the hippodrome. Let's have the next slide, please. And he, we've jumped one. Oh, we did that. Okay, leave that up, leave that up. So we can leave that up and I'll talk. So I will show you shortly. Here we are, thank you. So this is the races. So they were often with 4 horses, but occasionally with 2 horses. And they were charging around a track with a center statue in the middle. And people would race and bet on the horses. It was very much a passionate activity there. Okay, go back to the camera, please. Back to me. So towards the end of the 2nd century, we believe, they decided that they wanted to import a new sport in from Rome. Something a bit more gruesome. There was a bit of action at the horse races, but they wanted to see blood and guts, the Romans. So they introduced gladiators. So let's have the gladiator picture up, please. So here we have Russell Crowe, and on the other side, we have a mosaic somewhere from Rome showing gladiator battles. So we have a fair understanding what went on there. Often it was man against man, and then often it was man versus animal fighting to the death. Now we know a lot about this also from the Talmud. It also talks about this. Now, do you think the Talmud would encourage, and who is fighting in these battles? So the prisoners were often early Christians or Jews fighting to the death. So we had Jewish gladiator players. Some were free men and some did it by choice. The Talmud talks about one great rabbi, in fact, who was a gladiator fighter. But does the Talmud encourage these battles or not? Should Jewish people attend? Everybody's now turning their head, crossing their head. You can put it back on the screen, thanks. Screen back up. So everybody's crossing their head. But in fact, the Talmud says, yes, Jews should attend the gladiator battles. Jews should attend the gladiator battles even if they're on Shabbat. Now that's got a lot of people scratching their head. Why would the Jews want to be at these gruesome battles on Shabbos? And we're talking about a very important Jewish concept of pikuach nefesh. I'm sure you've all been in a shul and the beepers go off. All the Jewish doctors have to race out to save a life. It says that you save a life, you've saved the universe. But what's that got to do with gladiators? So what happens at the end of a gladiator battle is basically there's a boat waving the thumb above his head, the head of the town, and if it's thumbs up, they kill him. But if the crowd are cheering, save him, save him, save him, you may be able to save the Jew. So that's why we want as many Jews in the crowd as possible to help save a fellow Jew. There's also another reason discussed why we need Jews in the crowd. Because more likely or not, we may have tried to save him, but he has lost. So we need witnesses to identify this. Because there's a concept in Judaism for a woman who cannot remarry if we don't know what's happened to her husband, if he's missing. And that's called an agunah. So this woman, an agunah, comes from the Hebrew word ogen, an anchor. So the woman is anchored to her husband who's passed away. Now I want you to enjoy the waves. Can you hear me over the waves?
Yes.
Okay, so enjoy the scenery as we walk. And I get very emotional as I do this walk. one of my favorite little walks in Israel. But when I walk along here, along the beach of Caesarea, I think of a young woman who died tragically at the age of 23. And who am I referring to? You can pop the slide up now. I'm referring to this young woman called Hannah Senesh. I'm sure you've all heard of Hannah Senesh. Whoa, I just got a wayful. So I just got some refreshing water. Hannah Senesh. Let me tell you the story of Hannah Senesh and her connection to where we are. I think you can switch back to the scenery. So Hannah Senesh is a young girl who grew up in Budapest in a very assimilated home, but then she started going to Jewish Sunday school, which I highly recommend, especially the Chabad Sunday School. There you go, plug. She went to Sunday school, and from being an assimilated girl, she got very connected to her Jewish heritage. And in 1939, as a 17-year-old, she says goodbye to her parents and makes Aliyah to Israel. In 1939, she joins the kibbutz, which is just behind me, next to Caesarea, called Kibbutz Sdot Yam. Now, World War I, World War II breaks out, and the Jews volunteer through the Haganah to join in the British battle. They want to help the war effort. So Hannah Senesh and a team of others start training to be a part of this effort. And Hannah Senesh is one of 3 women who train to be parachuters. And she's only 23 at the time, and she is dropped into Eastern Europe, hoping to help the Jews of Hungary. But within a day, she is captured. She's taken to Budapest, whose regime is now working with the Nazis, and they torture her. They bring in her mother, hoping that she will surrender and give them information, but she doesn't. And finally, she is in front of her mother, she is executed. She was buried in Budapest, but in the 1950s, when the State of Israel was created, her body was brought over, and now she is buried in Jerusalem. She's buried in Jerusalem on Har Herzl as a Jewish heroine. What's that got to do with walking on the beach? So after she died, people were going through her room. They opened a chest, and in that chest was a notebook. And the notebook had many, many, many poems. And I think the most famous poem is called A Stroll in Caesarea, as we have been doing now. Now, in all the Jewish day schools and community events, when we have Yom HaShoah, there's a song always sung. A lot of you will know it, and a lot of you will not like my singing. But it's a very familiar song, and now you'll understand the connection. So the song I'm talking about, I will sing and then translate. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer le'olam, ha'chol ve'hayam, ha'rishrush shel ha'mayim, barak v'shamayim, tfilat ha'adam. So let me just briefly translate, and then you'll see why it is so significant. Because what was in Hannah Senesh's heart while she was going was just a song. I never understood the words. I thought it was a religious prayer, because it is. Eli, Eli, my Lord, Achol hayam, the sand and the sea. Harishrush shel hamayim. I get teary when I'm here, because you can hear the waves. Rishrush means the crashing of the waves. So you listen to the crashing of the waves at Caesarea, and that's what inspired Hannah Senesh to leave Palestine at the time to try to save the Jews of Europe. Barak Hashemayim, the lightning in the sky. Tfilat ha'adam, a prayer for mankind. So no walk in Caesarea is incomplete without talking about Hannah Senesh. And next time you are at a service and you hear the song, I want you to go back to the day that you were walking with me. And hopefully in the future, once Corona's over, come and walk with me along the shores of Caesarea. Jack Cherny, who's watching there back home, hi Dad. Dad has been in Israel over 25 times. And one year on Yom HaShoah, Memorial Day, I brought him to the house of Hannah Senish, and we were outside of the house looking at the sea as the siren goes to remember the fallen. So now we are approaching another section of the ruins. What we have here is a very deep, I've forgotten now, what do you call it? Something which goes around the city. Someone help me out, quick. A moat. We have a moat. We have a moat around a second section. So till now we've been looking at things connected to the Romans. Okay, but in 1100, King Louis IX from France, he comes here as a part of the Crusaders. These are Christians, and they build over the Roman ruins to create a Crusader fortress. So this is the giant moat protecting their part of the city. As we go through the archway, we're going to be coming to the final section of our tour. How are we doing for time there?
You're doing well.
We have
Great.
17 minutes to go, Dave.
So, okay. So again, after this, so let's come over. There's a nice sort of, so this is a summary of what we've done so far. We've seen the theatre. We've been over looking at the palace. We've walked the length of the racetrack. And now we've crossed in through the moat. And it's here that the harbour once was, going far out to sea. So this has had some recent renovations. And again, it's so spooky to have nobody here today. The Rothschild family who purchased the land that this is built on still are significant contributors. So they've just recently renovated the new visitor centre. And Baron Rothschild himself, he is buried in a beautiful garden in Zichron Yaakov, not far from where we are now. So what we have here, it's a bit glary, but is, oh, maybe come from the side. You can see the Roman temple. And that was accessed by stairs. So this Roman temple would have been way up there. So those arches that you see are the foundations of a Roman temple. And the Romans were pagans, they had many gods. Then in the 4th century, when Christianity starts, they build a church up there. When Islam comes along, they destroy the church and build a mosque. And when the Crusaders come, again, they rebuild the church. So it's been the hub for religious practice up there throughout that period. So there's this lovely lawn area. This lovely lawn area, there's some kids rolling. I've done that with my kids, a lot of fun. This lovely lawn area would have been in the day a VIP harbour. So the major harbour is way over to the left. But where the grass is would have been the VIPs. And they would have gone right up to the edge, then gone up the stairs and made their religious sacrifices up there. How are we for time? We've got a few minutes still?
Got 15 minutes.
Oh, good. So I thought I might get out of the sun for a minute, okay, and just do a little bit of distraction. So I always love going in, and today I go in with my clients, so I'm going to go in with you guys to a lovely, lovely gift shop, and they've got something pretty special here. So first of all, we have a little break. Australia, Shidu Yashir. No statues, okay. I've got to put my mask on. Hang on, I'm going to put my mask on. That's the lady in the shop you see. So beautiful Judaica. This is Australia, and they'll all come to your shop when they're ready after the corona.
We are waiting for you.
Okay, a blessing.
Waiting for you, Chantal from Nova.
Okay, so a little bit of PR, but some beautiful Hanukkah. The Hamsa is also very popular. A theme often in Israel are the pomegranate pieces. But what I want to highlight to you is something that I love very much, is this over here. Now this I call clever Israelis. We take the plastic bottles, we recycle them, turn them into synthetic sort of material, acrylic fibers, and then they have a technique called felting. They poke the material in, and then we end up with these spectacular pictures. Now, there are 4 artists. Some of them do flowers, some do modern art, but we have a lot of very beautiful Judaica. So we've got some lovely Judaica pieces here as well. But this is very unique and made in Israel. Here we have the Shibat Haminim, the 7 species, figs, dates, grapes, barley, wheat, also lovely Jewish themes as well. So again, in Caesarea, we have something to offer everybody. And I just came in here to escape the heat for a moment. Here we have the Shivat Haminim again. Wheat, barley, grapes, pomegranates, olives, figs. Okay, Israel's famous for its stray cats. Plenty of stray cats here in Caesarea. Okay, so I want to walk over to another lookout before we start summarizing what we've done today and to promote what we'll be doing over the next 2 visits. So Sunday week at 4 o'clock, Sunday week 4 o'clock will be Al Masada. We're doing a little bit earlier to avoid the intense heat. So 4 o'clock Sunday week. I'm sure you'll get reminded from Mendy. And then Erev Tisha B'Av will be in the Old City in Jerusalem. Now, I'll remind you next time, before we do the Jerusalem one, which is Tisha B'Av, still a few weeks away, I'm asking everybody, one of the wonderful traditions in Israel when you visit is to put a note in the Kotel, the Western Wall. I'm sure everybody who's been has done it, or anybody who's not got to Israel has said to a friend, take my message to the Kotel. And this is about a 200-year-old tradition, because not everybody can make the long trip, and especially today, it's very relevant. So what I suggested to Mendy is that everybody can write a personal prayer, email it, WhatsApp it, send it to Mendy. He obviously will respect and not read them, and then he will send them to me, and I'll put them all together. And when we get to the Kotel, your messages will be put into the Kotel. I don't think it could be more significant than doing it on Erev Tisha B'Av. So start thinking about it, and I'm sure Mendy will happily cooperate and collect them all.
Yep. Send it to Mendy at chabadgleneira.com. Confidential. We'll scan it all and send it to Dave.
Okay. What we're doing now is my last major stop. And we've got this nice diagram. So we can see the...
Can't hear you. Dave?
Incoming phone call. That grassy area was the inside, and then you can see the harbour. So that harbour basically goes way out beyond that breakwater that you can see today. It goes twice as far as that, and it's here that you can go diving. You can go diving and see the ruins. We've got some people enjoying the scenery here, enjoying it. Australia, Shidu Yashir. The lovely restaurants here in Caesarea, and people, in spite of the coronavirus, are still getting out, and they are well spaced. So we do a space, and you can see the waiters all wearing masks, and the other families are also wearing masks as well. So I know Melbourne's very concerned, Israel also. So again, things may tighten up in Israel as well. There's threats about another major closing down. Hopefully we'll be able to do our tours in the next few weeks. Okay, so I'm going to switch the camera around. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is I'm now going to go out of the park into my car, which is at this end of the park, which is very good. And then I will drive over to the aqueducts. I'll say I'll be there maybe 15 minutes. So for those who aren't going to continue, thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you in Masada and again in Jerusalem. But for anybody else, stay around, have a bite to eat, have a cup of tea, Dad, have a cup of tea. And then I do like to show you the aqueducts because they are spectacular. And it should only be about, for me, I'll be there in about, I'd say 15 minutes. So wait for me, I've got to get in the car, put my belt on, etc. And then we can go back on just for a few minutes to enjoy the scenery of the aqueducts. So before I go now, if there are any questions, anybody's got a burning question, I'm happily answer them. If not, I look
If you have any
forward to
questions,
seeing-
you can put it on the chat. You can ask some questions now on the chat if you wish. There was one question about didn't they have to kill someone to win in the theater? You're saying that they could save the person by a vote? Is that correct?
Yeah, so you'd say, but someone would end up dying. So yes, definitely someone was dying. But the fact that we have Jewish people there voting, it's like those shows on television, you phone in your vote. So the more Jews we had in the crowd, there was a chance we could save a fellow Jew. But in the end, somebody does die. And in most cases, it could have been the Jewish guy as well. But we just wanted to have a better chance by having more Jewish people in the crowd, even on Shabbos, says the Talmud.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just gonna switch. No, I can't switch around while I'm walking. So it was my pleasure. Look forward to seeing you in about 10 days' time in Masada. And for those who have got a few minutes, I'll meet you in about another 10 minutes on the beautiful beach of Caesarea.
Great.
So I'm signing off. I'll see you then.
Thank you very much, Dave. And just for those who are leaving, the 26th of July, Sunday, is a Masada tour at 4 o'clock Melbourne time, from 4 to 5. David needs to be there early in the morning because of the heat. And then on the night of Tisha B'Av, it's the 29th, Wednesday night, there would be a Eicha recital at 7:30, and then followed by Dave's tour of Jerusalem at 8 p.m. on Wednesday night, the night of Tisha B'Av. Thanks all for joining.
1 second. I'll Dave, we cannot hear you. Perhaps you should start the session again.
Of Caesarea. I don't think there is a prettier beach on the planet Earth. I say that with full sincerity. So what we are looking at is the water system, which was bringing water into Caesarea. Caesarea is out that direction that I'm facing now. I've just driven a few hundred meters across. And this is the remains of the water system, which was bringing water in from springs from the hills way over there, about almost 20 kilometers away. And these aqueducts have stood the test of time. Water was being transported in pipes above us. So I want to walk through the aqueduct. It's going to be a bit windy. I'm going to apologize already. But I want to make a correction. This is actually not an aqueduct. It's two aqueducts. One over here and a separate one over here, joined together side by side. Because as Caesarea was growing, it needs more water. Now, an aqueduct just runs on gravitation. Water is flowing down a gentle slope. So as the city grows, it needs more water. So they can't make more water come out of the ground. So they find a second spring and then build a parallel aqueduct leading across towards the city. So again, it's a very, very beautiful beach. A little kiosk is set up over the summer months. And we've got a few people. On the weekend, it gets very busy. Now, if you can see a white umbrella in front of me, there's some people sitting under a white umbrella. Look into the horizon behind that white umbrella. I've got it lined up, and you'll see the gas. That's where they are getting the Mediterranean gas 9 miles out to sea. And it's that Mediterranean gas which is then being brought over to create the power in the Caesarea power station. So again, I'll just let you enjoy the beauty of the aqueducts and the beach as I sign off, and I will see you in about 10 days' time, 4 p.m. on top of Masada. So I've come this far, I may as well put my feet in the water. So bear with me as I put my feet in the water and say goodbye, wishing you all in Israel, we can already say a Shabbat Shalom for the coming weekend. Do stay safe. I've been telling all my Australian friends, put on your mask when you're out, especially in the shops and in public transport. It's very important. Masks do help. So from the shores of the Mediterranean, this is David at Caesarea signing off.
Thank you very much, David.
Dave, you're a champ. You did such a beautiful job. And the scenery is just fascinating. I've never been to Caesarea, so this is for my first time I've seen it. Beautiful.